A human man coincides with an alien woman's mating season. Lieutenant Jason Reed was not having a good day. The console screamed again, a shrill metallic banshee wail that usually preceded either a hard reboot or a small fire. Jason slammed a gloved fist against the override panel, muttering, "Shut up, I get it, we're doomed. Stop whining about it." The ship, affectionately named the Tin Whisperer, though lately more Tin Whisper, had been spiraling toward the uncharted quadrant for 10 minutes, shedding parts like a molting bird with a death wish. Jason clung to the manual controls, trying to remember his training, which mostly involved simulations where everything worked properly. Okay, gravity's still working. That's a plus. Oxygen, sort of. Thrusters, not great. Explosive decompression risk, aggressively high. A planet loomed ahead, Zevra 9 unmarked on any Alliance map, which meant either uninhabited or so terrifying, no one survived to file a Yelp review. As the Whisperer plunged through the atmosphere, flames licked the hull and warning lights erupted like a malfunctioning disco ball. "I just wanted a supply run," Jason said, teeth clenched as the ground rose up like a sarcastic pancake. "Why is everything in space trying to murder me?" Impact came in a thunderous crash of metal, heat, and a noise Jason could only describe as planetary indigestion. Then silence. A groan that might have come from Jason or the ship or both. When he came to, he was upside down, and possibly inside out. He unbuckled, fell on his head, and crawled out of the wreckage, squinting at a sky the color of overripe blueberries. Trees towered overhead, their bark pulsating slightly, as if the forest had a slow heartbeat. The ground was soft, too soft, like sponge cake with an attitude. Jason tapped his comm. Dead. Tapped it again. Still dead. Of course, he sighed. Stranded on an alien planet with no backup, limited rations, and possibly classic Tuesday. He scavenged what he could from the ship. A survival pack, a half-functional scanner, and a protein bar that might have expired during the last ice age. The forest didn't seem immediately hostile, though one tree did giggle when he walked past. He started walking. Not because he had a plan, but because standing still felt like an invitation for the planet to grow teeth. An hour later, the scanner pinged. Life form. Humanoid. Jason froze, peering through the foliage. There, moving between the trees like a shadow made of gold and starlight, was a woman. Tall, muscular, graceful, and with long, tapering ears that swept back past her shoulders like sleek antennae. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight on water, and her eyes glowed a soft violet fixed directly on him. Hi?" Jason offered, raising a hand. "Sorry if I stepped on your lawn." She moved closer, silent as mist, and touched her fingers to his forehead. The world tilted. His nerves lit up like a malfunctioning billboard. He staggered back, blinking. "Okay." Bold. "Didn't even buy me dinner first." Her voice echoed in his mind, not words but impressions, heat, hunger, recognition. Her expression was unreadable, stern, regal, a bit like someone trying to remember if they left the stove on, but her presence was overwhelming. Jason cleared his throat. "I'm Jason. Jason Reed, lieutenant. Human, not usually this flammable." A shimmer sparked at her throat and a small device emerged, a translator node, ancient and slightly glitchy. "Kylessa," she said. Her voice was melodic with a slight delay like a podcast buffering in real time. "You are marked." Jason frowned. "Marked? Is that like tagged for observation or?" She stepped back and gestured around them. The forest responded, vines retracting, flowers blooming, the air vibrating with something unseen. "You have been chosen." "Chosen for what?" A pause. Then a word that arrived with the impact of a meteor made of velvet and doom. "Mating." Jason blinked. "I'm sorry, I must have hallucinated that. Did you say mating?" "Yep, thought so." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Okay, let's unpack this. I crash. You find me, touch my face like a psychic cat, and now I'm apparently your romantic chew toy?" Kylessa tilted her head. "You are compatible. The signs have aligned. It is the season." "Oh good, it's seasonal, like allergies, or produce." She stepped forward again, not threatening, but very deliberate. "We journey to the cradle. There, the ritual begins. You will be prepared." Jason backed up. "Yes, so funny thing about rituals. I usually RSVP no, especially they involve mating, chosenness, or anything requiring a loincloth." Kylessa narrowed her eyes. "You carry humor as a shield, curious? I carry sarcasm as a survival tool," he muttered. The scanner chirped again. More life signs converging. Not friendly. Jason glanced around. The trees shifted, warping in unnatural ways. Shapes moved through the foliage. Kylessa raised an arm. We must move. Others come. He has smelled the bond. He? Varnock. Her tone turned grim. Rival. Persistent. Possibly stupid. Jason sighed. Great, so I'm a contested prize now. What am I, an intergalactic dating show? She didn't answer. She just turned and walked, not away from danger, but deeper into it. Jason hesitated. Yep, okay. Following the tall alien woman who just psychically claimed me as her mate, because that's my life now. He jogged to catch up, mumbling, next time I crash, I'm aiming for a nice, boring moon with no ears, no rituals, and no giant suitors named Varnock. Behind them, something roared. Jason didn't look back. He was too busy trying to figure out if this counted as a first date. Jason was not built for running through alien jungles, especially ones that rearranged themselves when you weren't looking. Branches moved, trees sighed. One particularly rude shrub slapped him in the face as he passed. Is your forest mocking me? He huffed, ducking under a vine that tried to kiss him. Because I feel like I'm being heckled by a botanical comedy club. Kylessa didn't answer. She moved effortlessly, gliding between roots and leaves like she'd been born from the soil itself. Every so often, she'd glance back to make sure he was still upright and not swallowed by a sentient mushroom pit. Varnock approaches, she said without slowing down. Jason wheezed. Yeah, well, if he wants to kill me, he's going to have to wait for my lungs to stop filing complaints. They reached a clearing. In its center stood a massive creature with the body of a tortoise and the head of something that looked suspiciously like a bureaucrat. It glanced up from chewing moss and blinked 3 eyes at them. Kylessa raised a hand. The creature groaned, rolled aside, and exposed a smooth, spiral-shaped tunnel leading underground. Jason pointed. That is a womb. That is literally a planetary birth canal. Kylessa stepped into the tunnel without hesitation. Jason followed, mostly because the sound of Varnock crashing through the forest behind them was getting louder, and also because curiosity was stronger than his sense of self-preservation. The tunnel walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins that lit up as they passed, revealing strange murals. Scenes of tall-eared figures bonding with beings of different shapes, colors, and numbers of limbs. Jason slowed. Okay, so you've done this before? The whole interspecies ritual thing? Kylessa nodded. Rare, but not forbidden. When the signs align, the heart of Zevra accepts even those from beyond the stars. That's oddly progressive of your planet, Jason muttered. My people barely agree on pizza toppings. They emerged into a cavern filled with a low, humming light. Crystals floated above pools of glowing liquid. The air buzzed with unseen voices. Jason's skin prickled. Kylessa turned to him. This is the first rite, acknowledgement. Jason rubbed his face. Can I just acknowledge that I'm very confused, mildly terrified, and running low on deodorant? She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. You must reflect. Be seen. Be accepted. A floating crystal drifted toward them. It scanned Jason, then emitted a faint chime. The air shimmered. Suddenly, Jason was standing in front of himself, only taller and smugger. Really? Jason said. A self-reflection ritual? You made a clone of me just to roast me? Clone Jason smirked. It's not about roasting. It's about honesty. And by the way, you still think about that time you called your teacher Mom in 6th grade. Jason winced. Okay, wow. No need to bring that up. Kylessa watched silently as the two Jasons began arguing. The clone pointed out Jason's tendency to deflect with humor, his fear of intimacy, and his unhealthy attachment to freeze-dried spaghetti. Jason countered by kicking the clone in the shin, which did absolutely nothing. Eventually, the clone faded. The crystal chimed. Kylessa exhaled. You are seen. Jason nodded, dazed. I feel emotionally mugged by myself. They continued deeper into the cavern, where the walls narrowed into a twisting corridor lined with soft blue moss. Kylessa explained the next phase, resonance, a test of harmony between two chosen beings. So we? Sing? Jason. No. You dance. Jason blinked. I do what now? She activated a panel in the floor, and music started playing. Alien, complex, but with a beat. Oh no. Kylessa moved first, gracefully. Her limbs flowed like liquid light. Jason, meanwhile, resembled someone trying to fend off invisible bees. I feel like I'm being judged by the planet's rhythm god, he said. You are? Kylessa replied. And also me. Jason, determined not to die of embarrassment, tried to mimic her movements. He spun, stumbled, did something vaguely interpretive with his arms, and accidentally slapped himself. Somehow the music changed, adapted to him. The moss on the walls pulsed in time with his uneven steps. Crystals hummed. Kylessa stopped. "It accepts you." Jason grinned, panting. "I knew my awful dancing would save my life one day." As they rested, a new sound echoed through the cavern. Footsteps. Heavy, angry. Varnock. He stepped into the light, massive, armored, and very, very unimpressed. His ears flared, a sign of aggression or maybe indigestion. "You would bond with a human?" he growled. "A soft, fragile joke of a species?" Jason raised a hand. "Fragile, sure. Soft occasionally. Joke? Absolutely. But you forgot charming." Varnock lunged. Kylessa stepped between them, drawing a blade made of light and sound. Jason backed up, tripped on a moss tuft, and accidentally fell on a control crystal. The floor split open beneath them. They all fell. Jason screamed. Varnock roared. Kylessa cursed in Linthari, which sounded suspiciously like Earth opera sung in reverse. They landed in a chamber filled with mirrors, none of which reflected accurately. One made Jason look like a giraffe. Another replaced his head with a pineapple. Kylessa groaned. "We have entered the mirror labyrinth. The next trial." Jason sat up, rubbing his temples. "Of course, because nothing says romance like funhouse trauma." Varnock snarled. "I will claim the right. He is not worthy." Jason stood. "Buddy, I don't even want to be part of the right. I was just trying to not get eaten by vines 2 hours ago." The mirrors pulsed. A door opened ahead. Kylessa turned. "Only one of you may leave with me." Jason stared at her. "No pressure or anything?" They stepped forward. The trial wasn't over, but Jason had survived self-roasting, interpretive dance combat, and now mirror madness. All in all, not bad for a guy whose morning started with a ship fire and expired protein bars. Jason followed Kylessa through the first archway of the mirror labyrinth, trying very hard not to look at the reflection that made him appear like he had 6 elbows and a giant trout head. "I'm starting to think your people really don't believe in subtle metaphors," he muttered, stepping over a twitching vine that looked suspiciously like it wanted a hug. Kylessa didn't glance back. "The labyrinth reveals truths. It shows what you hide, what you fear, what you do not wish to confront." Jason gestured at one mirror, which showed him proposing to a half-eaten sandwich. "Well, apparently I fear commitment and hunger." Behind them, Varnock snarled. "The human mocks what he cannot understand. Typical off-world arrogance." Jason spun around. "Look, Varnock, I'm not here to win. I didn't wake up this morning thinking, gee, I hope I get spiritually tested by a glowing cave and emotionally pounded by an angry space Viking." Kylessa raised a hand. "Silence. The next chamber begins." The floor shifted beneath their feet, gliding them forward like a conveyor belt designed by someone who failed geometry on purpose. They entered a chamber filled with floating panels, each hovering midair like indecisive pancakes. Symbols danced across them, flickering in strange alien rhythms. "The trial of memory," Kylessa said. "You must prove awareness, understanding, connection." Jason glanced at the nearest panel. It lit up, displaying a memory from Earth. Him, 10 years younger, getting caught trying to sneak a stolen hover scooter through a security checkpoint. "Oh boy," he muttered. "That was a bad haircut year." The panel flashed red. Kylessa's eyes narrowed. "You must engage the memory. Justify its importance." Jason crossed his arms. "What, like explain why breaking curfew and almost getting court-martialed was a formative moment? Because I learned hover scooters don't go through walls, only people do?" The panel buzzed, then turned green. Kylessa gave him a tiny nod. "Sarcasm, properly used, reveals truth. Continue." Varnock stepped up to his own panel. It showed a memory of him being passed over in a Linthari rite. His snarl deepened. He smashed the panel with his fist. It reformed. Brighter. Jason leaned over. "Yeah, I don't think punching trauma is the approved method here, champ." The floor vibrated again, pulling them to the next trial. Now they stood on a narrow platform above an endless abyss of shifting stars. Gravity shifted sideways, then backwards, then very insultingly sideways again. Jason clutched his head. "Is this the trial of spatial nausea?" Kylessa replied, "Trial of trust." Varnock growled, "Trust must be earned, not given." Jason, trying to balance as the platform did a gentle cartwheel, said, "Cool. Let me know when that lecture series starts, Professor Grumpyface." A bridge began to form, segment by segment, each piece appearing only when Jason took a step forward. He swallowed. Ah, classic. Existential platforming, no pressure. He stepped out. The segment appeared. Another step, another segment. He turned. Kylessa was watching. Varnock scowled, arms crossed. Jason took another step. The bridge behind him vanished. Okay, he muttered. Lesson learned. Can't go back. Only forward. Just like the time I tried to eat 2-week-old cheese sticks from my locker. Halfway across, the stars below twisted. A voice echoed in his mind, his own, but crueler. You're not her equal. You're a mistake. Jason rolled his eyes. I've been called worse, mostly by ex-girlfriends and malfunctioning espresso machines. The stars hissed. Jason kept walking. He reached the end. The platform solidified. Kylessa stepped forward. You passed. Varnock crossed. The bridge didn't appear. He roared, leaped, and landed with a seismic boom, cracking the final segment beneath him. Jason staggered. You're gonna break the reality bridge. What are you, a walking sledgehammer? Varnock growled. Your tests are tricks, games. I follow instinct, not illusions. Kylessa's voice sharpened. Then you fail. They entered the final chamber, a circular arena lit by hovering orbs. Jason looked around, waiting for something dramatic. A monster, a boss fight, a talking plant. Instead, the air shimmered, and an old woman appeared, tall, long-eared like Kylessa, cloaked in shimmering robes. The heart of Zevra, Kylessa whispered. Sentience, the living will of the planet. The figure turned to Jason. Her voice boomed in every direction and none. Why you? Jason blinked. Excuse me? Why are you worthy of her bond? He exhaled. I don't know if I am. I didn't plan this. I didn't train for it. I just crashed, landed here. Tried not to die, tried to understand. I joke when I'm scared. I complain when I'm lost. But I've shown up every time, even when it was ridiculous. Especially then. The heart tilted her head. And you? She turned to Varnock. Varnock stood tall. I am strong, loyal to tradition. I have trained since birth. I deserve the bond. The heart paused, then turned away. Strength without reflection is weakness, she said. Tradition without change is decay. Jason squinted. Wow, that's profound, and also something I want to put on a mug. Kylessa stepped forward. The season ends soon. A choice must be made, not by instinct, not by right. She turned to Jason. Do you choose me? Jason opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Okay, look, I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know if this bond makes sense, but I know you challenged me, protected me, danced with me, and that's more than most first dates. So yeah, I choose you, ears and all. Kylessa smiled, small but real. Varnock snarled. This is a mockery. The heart gestured. A portal opened behind him. Return, she said. Grow or perish. Varnock hesitated, then stepped through. Jason turned to Kylessa. So, now what? She raised an eyebrow. Now we prepare for the union. Jason blinked. Wait, that wasn't the union? Kylessa smirked. No, that was the paperwork. Jason groaned. Space relationships are exhausting. Jason sat on a stone that hummed every time he shifted his weight. He had stopped trying to find a comfortable position about 10 minutes ago, around the time the rock informed him telepathically that his posture was disrespectful to ancestral sediment. Sorry, he muttered, adjusting his seat for the 4th time. Didn't mean to offend your geology. Across from him, Kylessa was in meditation, arms folded, eyes closed, surrounded by a faint aura of blue light. She hadn't spoken in nearly an hour. Jason leaned back, glanced at the sky, if one could call it that. It looked like melted glass sprinkled with stars that blinked like they were struggling to stay awake. He scratched his neck. So, this next step in the ritual, what exactly does prepare for union mean? Are we talking legal documents, space prenups, biomelding? Kylessa didn't open her eyes. You must synchronize with the song. Jason blinked. I'm sorry, the what now? She inhaled slowly. The Song of Zevra, it's the planet, a resonance that binds all life. You must hear it. Then you will be accepted. Jason looked around. Right, and where does one go to download the soundtrack? I don't hear anything. A vine poked his boot. He stared at it. The vine nodded, somehow, and then slithered into the ground, leaving a faint trail of glowing dust. Jason followed it, through a small crevice, down a slope that hissed, over a pond that spoke in riddles and warned him not to trust cucumbers. Finally, he stood in a chamber filled with floating crystals. The crystals chimed, softly, erratically. No pattern, no rhythm. Jason frowned. I'm supposed to hear a song in this? The crystals pulsed in response, then stopped, then blinked at him like confused jellyfish. He sat down and waited. Minutes passed, then more. Then, slowly, without warning, the crystals began to shift pitch. Not quite music, not quite language, just sound. Jason closed his eyes, and then the sound shaped into memory. Age 12. A cake he'd made himself because his parents were off-world, dry, burnt. But his first solo attempt. A training session. Age 20. Failing to lift his squadmate during a drill. Laughed at. Embarrassed. Determined. The crashed. The moment Kylessa touched his forehead. The song threaded itself through all of it. Not notes, but connections. Echoes of choices. Jason opened his eyes. The crystals glowed steady. The song was not something to hear. It was something to feel. He stood and returned. Kylessa opened her eyes as he approached. You heard it? Jason nodded. It played all my greatest hits, also my worst moments. So, thanks, I guess? She stood. Then you are ready for the merge. Jason raised a hand. Quick clarification. Merge as in spiritual alignment, or as in brains tangled together forever with no refund? Kylessa tilted her head. Yes, Jason sighed. You guys don't really do small steps, do you? They entered a chamber called the Heart Grove. The floor was soft and warm, the air thick with bioelectric energy. Vines dangled from above, pulsing like veins. In the center stood a structure that resembled an altar, if altars came with user interfaces and calibration dials. Jason approached. The console blinked. Name, it said, Jason Reed. Emotional stability, 37%. Jason grimaced, that seems generous. Cognitive load, erratic. Welcome to my life. Kylessa placed her hand beside his. Kylessa of the Linthari. Cycle rank, initiate ascending. The altar pulsed. Compatibility unconventional, probability of bond 72%. Jason raised a brow. That's basically a cosmic coin flip with mood swings. The altar split in two. Merge chamber unlocked. Jason followed Kylessa inside. A sphere of light surrounded them, lifting them gently into the air. Tendrils of energy reached out, non-invasive, curious. Kylessa closed her eyes. You must allow it to see you, fully. Jason nodded. Nothing to hide. Except maybe that one time I pretended to be allergic to speed. The merge began. Jason's thoughts brushed against Kylessa's. Moments of fear, stubbornness, curiosity, doubt. Then hers touched his. Discipline, longing, confusion, hope. Their memories wove together. A shared image, the moment of first contact. Her awe at his sarcasm, his shock at her strength. Her grief for a sister lost during her own trial. His guilt for surviving when others didn't. The light intensified, then softened. The sphere lowered. They stood together. Kylessa looked at him. It is done. Jason rubbed his temples. I feel like my brain just went on a very intense blind date. Outside, the ground trembled. Kylessa tensed. That is not part of the ritual. A voice boomed through the air, deep and distorted. You defy the path. Jason peeked out. Oh good, the planet's mad. We broke up with tradition and now the ecosystem wants to fight us. The sky dimmed. Cracks formed in the grove walls. Kylessa drew her blade. Jason sighed. I knew there'd be a final boss. I just hoped it wouldn't be the planet itself. A figure emerged from the fissures. Varnock, but no longer just Varnock. His body fused with segments of root and crystal. His eyes glowed like volcanic glass. Kylessa whispered. He forced the planet to accept him. It corrupted the bond. Jason raised both hands. So now we've got a jealous ex-boyfriend with geopowers. Perfect. That's exactly what my therapist warned me about. Varnock stepped forward. If I cannot win by right, I will take by force. Jason turned to Kylessa. Any chance the planet has a reset button? Or maybe a Dispel Wrath app? Kylessa handed him a crystalline spear. No, but it has you. Jason groaned. Right, the untrained, emotionally unstable guy with unresolved authority issues. That's who you're counting on? She smiled. Yes. Jason looked at the oncoming, earth-warping juggernaut. Then he rolled his shoulders. All right, let's ruin his dirt-powered ego. Jason stared at Varnock, now partially encased in twisting root structures and crystalline armor that pulsed with a disturbing glow, like a lava lamp possessed by an ancient AI with abandonment issues. The ground beneath them buckled and cracked. Zevra itself seemed caught between admiration and mild horror at what Varnock had become. Jason took a single step forward and immediately regretted not asking for some kind of anti-possession spray in the last chamber. So, Jason said, gripping the crystalline spear, just checking. What's the official Linthari protocol for dealing with root-infected, ego-driven ex-suitors who've gone full avatar villain? Kylessa stood beside him, calm but focused. Traditionally, we offer them tea and then exile them into a lightning canyon. Jason nodded. Right, so, let's skip the tea. Varnok's voice rumbled across the grove, deeper now, like thunder disguised as a motivational speaker. You were not worthy. I followed the right. I endured the trials. She was mine. Jason raised a hand. Quick rebuttal. She's not a prize. Also, no offense, but you've got vines growing out of your spine. That's not a great look, buddy. Varnok launched forward. The ground heaved. Jason dove sideways, rolling across moss that let out a very judgmental squeak. He landed beside a bioluminescent stump that cheerfully whispered something about regretful marriages. Kylessa engaged Varnok, moving faster than any warrior had a right to. Her blade of energy struck against his crystal-clad arm, sparks bursting in arcs of violet. Varnok retaliated, sending a shockwave of kinetic force that flung her back. Jason ran toward her, crouched beside her, half panicked. You okay? She winced. He has the planet's force, but it is not stable. He forced the bond. Jason glanced up. So you're saying he's on a cosmic sugar rush and it's going to crash? Yes, but we must survive until then. Jason nodded, turned, and immediately sprinted straight into a vine construct fist that sent him tumbling into a tree. The tree muttered, clumsy, and dropped a fruit on his head. Thanks, Jason groaned, spitting moss. The crystal spear pulsed in his hand. It hummed, a familiar vibration, the same resonance he'd felt in the merge. The song. Jason stood. All right, Zevra, let's duet. He raised the spear and focused, trying not to think about how much he didn't know what he was doing. The song answered, flickering through his chest into the weapon and then into the air. Varnok stumbled. Jason grinned. Ha! You feel that? That's rhythm. That's emotional growth. That's vulnerability, baby. The spear released a burst of harmonic force that hit Varnok in the chest, cracking the crystalline armor. Varnok roared, voice glitching between anger and something almost pleading. Kylessa rejoined Jason, limping slightly. Together, Jason nodded. Let's harmony this maniac into submission. They circled him, the spear and Kylessa's blade emitting synchronized waves of energy. The vines writhed, resisting the resonance. Zevra trembled, confused. A battle of will and instinct, tradition and change. Jason closed his eyes, reached out with the song. He felt Varnok's fury, his fear, his loneliness. Jason didn't push it away. He absorbed it, reflected it. Let Zevra see it. The ground stilled. The vines collapsed. Varnok fell to his knees, chest rising and falling with ragged static-laced breaths. The crystals peeled from his body like shedding skin. He looked at Jason. No rage now, just exhaustion. She was never mine, he said quietly. The right lied. Jason nodded. Yeah, turns out consent's kind of important, even in ancient planetary rituals. Varnok looked at Kylessa. Forgive me. She nodded once. Leave this place. Heal, become something better. A portal opened, not forced, not summoned, but offered. Varnok stepped through without another word. Jason dropped the spear and sat down. That was exhausting. I feel like I just emotionally therapied an angry continent. Kylessa sat beside him. You did. Silence. A breeze stirred the leaves. One of the vines waved lazily, now docile and perhaps a bit embarrassed. Jason looked over. So, are we bonded now? Is that how it works? Epic confrontation, shared empathy, musical weaponry? Kylessa smiled. The bond is forged not by the right, not by the song, but by choice. Jason hesitated, then offered his hand. I choose. She took it, and so do I. The grove pulsed with warm light. Zevra responded, not as a planet claiming them, but as a witness, a silent, glowing nod. Later, back at the crash site, Jason looked at what was left of the Tin Whisperer, which now resembled a museum exhibit labeled Early Spaceflight Failures. Kylessa approached with a handheld device. Your people received your signal. Rescue arrives in 12 hours. Jason raised an eyebrow. Wait, they're actually coming? After I've made peace with a sentient planet and emotionally reconciled with a root monster? Yes, Jason exhaled. Figures. I finally get comfortable being stranded, and now they show up. Kylessa looked at the stars. Will you leave? He followed her gaze, then looked at her. I'll visit. A lot. Also, I'm taking that vine that judged me. We've bonded. The vine waved again. They laughed. 12 hours later, the rescue ship landed. Jason stepped aboard, turned well, and looked back at Kylessa. I'll file a full report, he said. It'll be weird. It'll involve glowing ears, psychic karaoke, and possibly legal marriage. Kylessa smirked. I look forward to the footnotes. As the hatch closed, Jason leaned back in the chair, stared out the window, and grinned. He wasn't just returning from a crash. He was returning changed. No longer just a lieutenant, but a survivor of instinct, of tradition, of cosmic awkwardness, and maybe, just maybe, a guy with someone waiting for him on a planet that once tried to eat him. Which, all things considered, was a pretty solid ending. The end.